at 7 p.m. The invocation will be given by Youth Counseling Services Director, Dr. John Vining. Please, sir.
Father, we are grateful today for your goodness and your blessings upon us, and for your watch care over our county. We thank you for the opportunity to live here and to contribute here. So I pray for our commission tonight, that you would bless them with wisdom, with understanding, with discernment. Contrary to so many places, I pray that this commission would be a model of respect and unity, of clear decision making that's in the best interest of all of our citizens. We pray your blessings upon our country tonight, upon this town and this county. In Jesus' name.
Amen. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Report from the county mayor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. I only have one thing to report tonight, and that's about our latest meeting with Tenova concerning our ambulance service. You may recall we met with them, 3 times total now. We started a couple of months ago, and we had our first meeting. Didn't accomplish a whole lot that first meeting. And the second meeting came around. The improvements had been made, but there was still some disagreement on how to put the data together so we could start comparing whether we'd made improvements or not. And that decision was made in that second meeting. The hospital installed time clocks. Just in case you don't know, they installed time clocks where that when the ambulance employee arrives with the patient, when they go in the door, they stamp that time clock, sort of like going to work. And then whenever the patient is offloaded off the stretcher into the hospital bed and they go out the door, then they hit the time clock again. So that's given us pretty good data to go by on tracking this. After the September meeting with Tenova, I'll read you this report to make it quicker. I asked Mike Guerin, and you know Mike, he's operations manager at the ambulance service, to work closely with Tenova staff to monitor the times so that we could tell how long it was taking, why it was taking too long, and so forth sometimes. Mike, since then, has visited the ER each morning to view the previous day's timesheets. When those, like if we had 20 calls yesterday where we delivered patients to the ER, then they were looking at those 20 calls, and the ones that were over 30 minutes, it was pretty much agreed that 30 minutes is about the normal time for something like this. So he was meeting with staff. Okay, this one took 50 minutes. Why, and so forth. He was waiting on a daily basis rather than waiting to the end of the month. The crews were instructed to make a copy of the time card to include with their reports also. Mike met with the ER director on or the charge nurse each morning to go over the previous day's cards. Each card was looked at the time and the time totaled. Each card that had a wait time exceeding the 30-minute window was discussed with the staff. It was found that during each wait time that there would be either an influx of ambulance patients and or walk-in. On a few occasions, wait times were due to high acuity patients in the ER requiring several staff members to take care of the patient. For example, one day in particular, wait times were extensive due to a pediatric code in which the ER staff worked continuously for many hours trying to save a child. Some wait times were attributed to waiting on housekeeping to get a room clean, and so forth. But on average, wait times fell within the 15 to 20-minute range. Researching with the interim director also showed that peak periods during these times, it seems like there are peak periods. I know when we're getting more calls and taking them, and they have sort of peak periods with their walk-ins also. Researching with the interim director would show that these peak periods did appear on a day-to-day basis. But all in all, by looking at the data gathered, the wait times, the important thing is the wait times have improved drastically. Mike found that his visits throughout the day would reveal several of our units at the ED that had already been offloaded and no calls holding. And I found this to be true myself in checking. If you go by and there's 2 ambulances sitting there, they may have unloaded. Don't assume that they've not, because they could have unloaded, and then they're told and given permission they can go in the lounge, have a cup of coffee, and take a break or whatever, as long as another call's not coming in. And that happens sometimes. Well, I started to say this could cause the appearance of ambulances being held up. At no time during this data gathering period were any 911 calls missed or delayed during extended hold times. So in this last 30 days, no calls were missed or delayed because of unloading time at the hospital. In conclusion, it appears the hospital and the EMS staff are functioning as best as possible during these times of low staffing and high call volume. Call volume has slowed somewhat with spikes at various times of the day, as I said earlier. You know, this really got bad during COVID. The hospital was covered up. We were hauling patients to the ER as fast as we could haul them there. Most of them were COVID patients. That has let up a lot. But we still have a few times that it takes longer than it should. After giving this report last week, we will be meeting again in about a month again, but and Mike will continue to meet with them on a daily basis to go over the previous day's calls. But to give you an idea, in the last 30 days, from September the 22nd to October the 19th, it was a 4-week span, we had 576 deliveries to the ER. 42 of those were more than the 30-minute agreed to time span. So about 7% are still issues that we will continue to work on addressing, but really it's gotten, I don't know what it was the first meeting. I can tell you a year ago and 2 years ago, it was a whole lot worse than that. But 576 patients were delivered. Only 42 of them went over the 30-minute time span. So that's about 7%. We want to get that to 0, but there'll always be 1 or 2, I feel like. But anyway, that's the latest from the 3rd meeting last week, and we will have a follow-up meeting again sometime in November. Any questions about any of that? I just wanted to give you the latest after they were here a few weeks ago, and we've continued to work on it, tremendous improvements, and we'll continue to work on it in the future.
Commissioner Blake?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor, of those 576, and that obviously is a percentage of the total, you guys keeping track of this with other medical places?
No. The only one that was really questioned was Tenova. I can tell you this, and over time, the issue's been here and at other hospitals. It's not just been one hospital. But there's not near as many calls going there. So we were, potentially tying up more ambulances in Cleveland, of course, than we were at Erlanger or Memorial. But there are wait times there, too. I have gone by Erlanger. If I'm in that area, I check on things like that. And I've gone by Erlanger, 2 ambulances sitting there. I don't know how long they were there, but sometimes, because especially during COVID, they were packed out also. But the bottom line is all of that's gotten better. The staff is working together better than they were. There was probably hard feelings during that time, both our staff, their staff, short-staffed, overworked, and that kind of thing. But they seem to be working a lot better together now. And the time clock, it's not that we're checking on them, but it does give us the data to come back and report. And I think that's working well. And we've only had that in place for the one time. But no, we've not gone to Erlanger or Memorial or those others. I don't think there's a need to. If we can get it corrected here, we'll just address those because they're much fewer.
That's what I was getting at, is that percentage-wise, that 576 probably represented a majority of all the calls. So
And when you look at the ones, I've got the chart if you want to see it. I mean, like on this particular day, there were 35 patients delivered. 1 was over 30 minutes. Well, that 1 was 38 minutes. So,
yeah.
Now, if you go down it in a month's time, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 5 that were really not that good, but a lot of them are 37 minutes, 32 minutes, and, things like that. But we counted anything over 30 minutes and put it in the column of needs improvement. And so the percentage has gotten a lot better. It really has. Any questions?
Well, I guess the last thing is the only criteria is if they go over 30 minutes. right? I mean, not so much if they're under 5 or anything like, it's 30 or over, and that's
Right.
the only thing that
That's
raises
the
a
only
flag.
thing that we clocked, is we just collected data if they were over 30 minutes. You're right, yes.
Any more questions?
And then there was a lot of days there were none over too, if you go down the chart. Sir?
As soon as the ambulance arrived, they were immediately put in there.
Yeah, and if everything's perfect, that's how it should always be, but there's gonna be imperfect times as long as they're not the majority, I guess, you know what I'm saying? So, because staffing is an issue everywhere, in all walks of life, but especially in healthcare, it really is. But I guess the most important thing is people were starting to think that because of this, and it potentially could have been, because of wait times here, maybe calls are getting not answered in a timely manner otherwise, but that didn't occur any in the last 30 days. That's the important thing, the most important thing, I guess I should say.
Well, I'm sorry, but that lets us know that our fleet, we have enough in our fleet to handle the calls. That was the
Yeah.
thing that we talked about in finance a number of times is we have one ambulance on order, we got one coming.
But-
Is our fleet adequate for our population? And it sounds
I
like-
think the ambulance people would say the answer is yes. And from my perspective, it's never been a matter of number of fleet. It's the number of ambulances on the roads based on the staffing. I can tell you that. Usually there's one or two backups. Sometimes there might just be one because of one down. We are still waiting on new ones, but those are not growing the fleet. They're replacing the older vehicles. So we're still waiting, hopefully getting one in December, and the other one, they're all over a year on order. But it's not really a number of ambulances on the road because that's determined by the staffing, and we have added some. I think about a month ago, told you about the 5 that graduated, the 5 additional paramedics that we've gotten. There's only 2 or 3 in the class for next year, but we have added several of EMTs and AEMTs. You're going to see more and more AEMTs, what it amounts to, because paramedics are almost like nurses. They're not out there. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hey, Gary, do we have any issues at the nursing homes, Life Care or Bradley Rehab with pickup? I know they pick up at those nursing homes.
Not that I know of offhand. Now, keep in mind, transports. We're an EMS, emergency medical service is what we are, and I get at odds with people sometimes. Transports, I know what you're thinking, well, that's money, but we're an emergency medical service because those always come first. The other issue that we're continuing to have discussions with the hospital on is ordering transports from the hospital and not getting pre-approvals. We can't get those pre-approvals. They have to be done by the discharging hospital. And the bigger issue, at this point at least, is calling us. We may have 10 transports, and if 5 of them weren't pre-approved, then we don't get paid for those. So that is an issue that is more about dollars that we're going to continue to address. They're working on that. We feel like we've got this issue kind of resolved to a point at least, but we'll continue to work on those. But there are times, I mean, the hospital may call up at 4 o'clock this afternoon and have 6 discharges. Well, if we don't have anybody running emergencies, we can get those 6 discharges. But if we've got someone on emergency, then they're going to do the emergencies and do the discharges as they can. We're trying to get them to spread them out. Don't just give us a pile of discharges at once. And sometimes it may be a similar thing with nursing homes. But the transports home, we don't get paid unless they're pre-approved. And so we're trying to get that training in place with staff because there's been a lot of staff turnover everywhere. Right now I'm talking about the hospital. The staff turnover, they don't necessarily know how it was done 2 years ago or how it should be done. So a lot of that training is going on their end. They're working well with us, and I think there'll be improvements there, but that's an area we've got to work on is getting all of those pre-approvals in place so that when we do a transport, we do get paid for it, because all we can do is assume it was pre-approved. We find out later that it was turned down because it wasn't pre-approved. Well, you see what I'm saying? So they've got to do that. And in the daytime, that's working well, but in the evenings, there's a lot of times an issue. We'll get calls to transport home, and second shift didn't get pre-approval sometimes. Is that sort of what you're asking?
Thank you.
Commissioner Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an anecdotal comment. At 7:30 on a Sunday night, we called the ambulance service to our church. They were there in 10 minutes. They were there professionally to take care of a broken leg, who happened to be my wife's, and provided the best professional care that you could find. Took us straight to the hospital. Hospital worked with us till 1 o'clock that morning, and we were dismissed at about 1:30. So we could not have asked for better service, better care. Our EMS service are the most caring, professional people that you will find in an emergency. They come in professionally, but they're also human in the midst of the action. When your family member's crying, when they're in the midst of the trauma, they join with you to do great work. So I'm glad to see the timing has worked. We were there till midnight, a little after midnight, left about 1 o'clock, and really had good care there. But they just had three people really working in EMR, and each one of them did all they could do during that time. So it was great. But that's kind of anecdotal to what we've said here, but it looks like great work being done. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is everyone has staffing issues, and especially in healthcare, that we've just got to work together and not throw stones too much at each other and do the best we can working together. But there's always room for improvement, and the good thing is here there's improvement being made, I believe.
Any other questions for the mayor?
If not, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Last week, you voted to create the Recreation Ad Hoc Committee. Today, I'm going to appoint the following members of that committee. Commissioner Josh Rogers will be the chairman. Commissioners Louis Alford, Mylan Blake, and Denny Collins. The citizens will be Jamie Kyle, Bartley Norton, and Greg Phillips. And non-voting ex officio member will be the director of the Parks and Recreation, Andy Lockhart. So I'll leave that up to the new chairman of that committee to do his thing. We'll start on the committee and commission district reports with Commissioner Beatty.
I was really impressed when I toured the juvenile center with the juvenile committee, and I was really impressed with them people out there. I think they're doing a real good job out there and really helping the parents and the kids all. But I ain't got nothing else to report, Mary.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Alford, please.
Second district's doing well. The, one other thing that, Mr. Chairman, the Law Enforcement Committee meeting will meet at 1 p.m. on October 27th at the Sheriff's Office. Following the meeting, we will tour the facility. I invite all commissioners to join us and tour, especially the new commissioners. I think it'd be very informative that you come and tour the jail, because just like everybody says, they're doing a great job down there too. Really impressed with Sheriff Lawson and his people.
Commissioner Collins, please. Commissioner Blake, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The HCI committee met last week and announced just over $100,000 will be awarded this grant cycle for health, wellness, and quality of life cycle capital projects. You have a copy of the 2022 HCI grant cycle for reference. I encourage all local government entities and 501(c) organizations to contact the commission office to submit their letter of intent by 4:30 p.m. on November the 30th. Also invite all interested parties to attend the HCI grant workshop on November the 2nd at 5 p.m. here in this room to learn more about the HCI grant process. Also, Mr. Chairman, last week, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Mason, Commissioner Collins, myself, and the mayor attended the 75th anniversary of Lee University returning back to Cleveland, Tennessee. I thought that was a pretty good event, gave a historical perspective on it, and Dr. Cash was there as well. Lee University has been an asset to this community, and next week they will host their annual homecoming. Thousands of alumni will be here, and we'll welcome them with Lee University to Cleveland and Bradley County. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Collins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to share a quick statement. Many of you know by now that our community lost one of its most cherished individuals this past weekend, as Mr. Ron Spangler went home to be with the Lord. Mr. Spangler was a longtime educator in Bradley County, spending time as a teacher and coach at Truett Jr., Charleston, Bradley Jr., and Ocoee Middle School, where he retired as the longtime school principal. Mr. Spangler's family, his wife Sherry, daughter Brittany, and sons Jason and Patrick, along with his son-in-law, daughters-in-law, and beautiful grandchildren, have made arrangements for visitation tomorrow beginning at 4 p.m. at North Cleveland Baptist Church, where Ron was a longtime member and deacon. Funeral service will be Wednesday at 2 p.m. with a time of visitation beginning at 1 p.m. Both will be at the North Cleveland Baptist with a graveside to follow. During the most recent Bradley County Board of Education meeting, the board voted, under the recommendation of Ocoee Middle School Principal Dr. Corey Lindbergh and Bradley County Schools Director Dr. Linda Cash, to dedicate and name the Ocoee Middle School Gymatorium facility in honor of Ron, who was the school principal and one of the primary driving forces behind its construction, as he saw the needed benefit for the students and families of Ocoee Middle. Mr. Spangler was notified of the dedication last week during a presentation at his home, along with his family, Dr. Cash, Dr. Lindbergh, and a number of other community members. It was a special and most deserving moment. To many of us on the commission and in our community, Ron represented the best of us. Ron was a loving husband, a committed father, a proud grandfather, and most significantly, I believe he would say, a faithful servant of his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Ron loved his family, his church, and his community. He loved people and spent his days caring about others above himself. I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to have worked alongside Mr. Spangler, to be mentored by him, but most significantly, to be called his friend. I would ask that we continue to love the Spangler family and pray for the days ahead, that they would experience peace, comfort, and a time of reflection on the joyful memories made together. May we all strive to live a life of impact, selflessness, and of faith that was demonstrated by Ron Spangler. Our Director of Schools, Dr. Cash, is here. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recognize her. She'd like to speak.
Very well, Dr. Cash, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Collins and the rest of the commission. I just want to say what a beautiful tribute it is to Mr. Spangler to have the gymatorium named after him. And on Thursday, as we presented that to him and to his family, I want everyone to know he knew exactly what was happening. He was indicating with his hand, and as in Ron Spangler fashion, giving us a thumbs up. So what a pleasure to know Ron and his family, and his legacy will live with us forever, not only in that building being named, but with his family, who are just an outstanding image of what he wanted his family to be, true leaders and dedicated to the Lord and dedicated to this system. So great Thanksgiving. There will be a service later on at Ocoee Middle for the actual dedication, and we're looking forward to that. And again, I promise you, he knew what was happening, and we did get a thumbs up from Mr. Spangler. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Is that all? Thank you very much. Commissioner Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Collins and I both had the opportunity to work with Ron Spangler. Ron was my assistant principal when we had the journey of Bradley Jr. and Ocoee Middle. And what you said was a tremendous statement about Ron's life, and I won't add to that. But we have lost some great educators in Bradley County and Cleveland in the last several months, people that have contributed greatly to the generations, and means that those that follow have a real challenge to meet the level of commitment that the Ron Spanglers of the world and others had in this community. So condolences to his family, but they lived it to the fullest in the last 5 years with his cancer that he fought. They fought it together, and they celebrated his life together. So they have nothing to feel that they did not do. They shared every moment with Ron that they could, and now wish him well. But we wish the family well, and we'll be praying for them through this time of bereavement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Gilbert.
Juvenile Committee met last week and toured the facility. I'd like to thank Judge Andrew Morgan for the hospitality and his staff. Man, each one of them come up and spoke and introduced herself and told us what they do. And it just excited me that some of the things that they was allowing us to hear was not just to punish a child. They're actually going to go a step further than that and try to reach the families. And man, the staff over there is just amazing. If you've never met them, call them, go see them. And it's not just if your kid's in trouble. They said, if you need help with your child, bring them over, let them talk to them. And but everything over there was just it was really neat touring the jail, the juvenile detention. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, man, they could just buy these kids a pizza and bring it over here and feed them. There's not a whole lot of kids here. And she said, no, they'll eat the same food as they're eating at the Justice Center. Said they're not here for a play day. And I was like, wow, that's exactly right. So kudos to them. They run that. It is clean. It's a nice ship over there. They do an amazing job. And then as soon as I went home, I sat down, I turned on the TV, and Governor Lee had a commercial on. And it said, if the family goes, so does our nation. So we got to start with our families. And I'd like to just ask y'all to be in prayer about this election that's coming up. It's so important. Not just pray for it, get out and vote. There's 4 agendas that's going to be on there, and I wasn't really for sure what they was. And I actually went on Dan Howe, State Representative Dan Howe's page, and he explained them and showed the way that he was voting. So get out and vote. Be in prayer for our nation. We're in need of good people and good things to happen. So our future will be brighter. It'll be a brighter day. And thank everyone for coming over, guys. I appreciate y'all. And the 4th District's looking good.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Thompson, sir.
Well, everybody's got something good to say. I don't. And what I'm talking about is Election Commission. I found out that Planet Fitness wasn't open in the South End this time. They closed it up. And if you read the article in Sunday's paper, well, they'll tell you why they closed it up. I think they're packing it out on the commission that we showed them the money and whatever. But they still went and opened up a location in the Northeast Recreation Center. And I've had a lot of emails and phone calls on where do we go vote. But the first day I went to Bradley Square Mall, I walked in, there's about a line about a mile long. And I looked over and there's 4 voting machines. That's all there was. And people everywhere trying to vote. You know, if we're going to have a good turnout, we need to have places to vote. And we need to have it access. These old people can't stand in line a half a day and vote. And they get disgusted and eventually they won't go vote. And a lot of people run up there on their own time and get away from work or something like that. And they got to have a place to vote. But if you read that article, first of all, we're not the fault. They need to open these voting precincts back up. They had Planet Fitness, and it was plenty parking, plenty room to go vote. The old people had access in and out, and so I've had a lot of phone calls, and I've had a lot of people that's made complaints about them closing Planet Fitness down the voting precinct down at Planet Fitness. But I don't know what the problem is, except the fact, I guess, they're trying to get even with us because of the budget year. But that's no way to treat the people. And we want a good turnout, and we're not going to get a good turnout unless we have the voting places for them to go. So that's what I got bad to say, that I'm sorry that they closed up Planet Fitness, and that's what I call the South End. And Lou, that's not the North End, that's the South End. And, so it seems like every time something happens, well, they want to do it on the south end. So anyway, we got people over there too that like to vote. So anyway, I just wish that we could call the election commission or whoever in charge over there now back before this commission at a work session, and let's go over and see what the problem is. But they don't seem like they had a problem except for salaries when they were up here the last time. It wasn't about closing up precincts, but they had a problem with the salaries. So we need to do something about it. We need to have a place for the people to vote. And that's all I got to say.
Commissioner Goins, please.
Done well.
All right. Commissioner Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, Commissioner Rogers, Mayor Davis, and myself attended the Southeast Tennessee Development District quarterly meeting in Chattanooga, and I brought each one of you some reading material. It has a lot of good information in it about what they actually do, but just a few things that they have done in the past year. They have continued to supply local planning assistance to 27 communities in our area. They also submitted applications for critical water, sewer, and community livability projects and managed infrastructure projects totaling $28.4 million. And they secured $12.7 million in grant funds, which has benefited over 143,500 residents throughout our region. But the highlight of the meeting was at the end, they gave out their 2022 Southeast Tennessee Development Innovation Awards, and our Bradley County Schools was the recipient of the Workforce Development Innovation Award related to the work with the Pie Center. So Dr. Cash and some of her staff were able to attend also, so it was a good meeting. I encourage you, if you have time, look at your documents, and if you don't want to read it, you can give me your pen back. Also related to that, the Education Committee will meet tomorrow afternoon and tour the Pie Center at 4:30. I invite all commissioners to attend and to tour the facility with us. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Welcome back from Europe. Commissioner Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Road Committee will meet here in the Commission Room 10:30 a.m. on Thursday morning. I know Thursday's going to be a busy day for all of us, but that's why we ran. I had last week I had a terrible virus and couldn't make it. Unless I'm on vacation or something, I try to make all the meetings. I didn't get to talk on the Household Hazardous Waste Day. I feel like it was a success, thanks to the mayor, Missy Harrison, Thomas Bell, Amanda Pills with KB, Chris Broom with City Stormwaters, and all the volunteers, and I'm not going to start trying to name all of them because I'd leave someone out. We had 301 vehicles to show up and 340 households, and we ran the operation a little bit different this year. I like changing up things sometimes, and I think it ran a lot faster this time, so that's what we want to get folks in and out. I also have had several constituents call about going over to Planet Fitness and know where to vote, so that is a concern of mine also. And the last thing I'd like to speak on tonight is about Ron Spangler. Ron was my baseball coach at Truett Junior High School for 3 years, and I grew fond of Coach Spangler growing up, and then I spent several months with him at Ocoee Middle as SRO there. And last but least, he was mowing up in Fort Hill, and lots of days I would see Ron over there mowing and stuff, and knowing that he wasn't really able to be out there. But Ron loved life, and I guess if there's anything I could say about Ron tonight and to his family, he was steady, fair, love, and he was my friend. And that's all I've got, Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Got a couple little items. Had a constituent out in Farmingdale subdivision brought to me bushes and trees growing into the roadway. Called Tom Collins, and Tom went out, looked at it, put that subdivision, those lots, on the mowing schedule. Of course, he can't pull those mowers off of where they're at to come run over and do that. So he contacted her. She's satisfied. She's good to go. She is the president of the homeowners association, so she got his phone number for future. Met with Doug Berry at the chamber. That went real well. That's a very smart individual. Freedom Park had our fall festival Saturday. Kim Mason and Andy done a wonderful job cleaning that place up. We had some bleachers there that need to be hauled off. Tim took care of that. I reported on it last week. Of course, Tim wasn't here, so I wanted him to hear it straight from me. And then, of course, Andy had his crew go in and clean all that brush up. The Freedom Park really, really, really is nice. I would imagine, I think the number probably approached 200, 250 people there when I went by there Saturday evening. So thanks to those guys for cleaning that up. For our district down in the 6th has a place to go walk on our walking trail, which was supplied by the HCI committee. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, Bradley County had the honor of hosting builders and suppliers from all across the state as the Home Builders Association of Tennessee came to town for their annual conference and dinner. The mission of the Home Builders Association of Tennessee is advocacy for the residential construction industry, housing affordability and availability through legislation, communication, and education. I had the honor to attend their meetings and speak with them about many things going on in the building industry, but also about their support in local and state government. Also, I was able to attend with a few other commissioners their annual awards dinner as well, and I want to say a big congratulations to a few people. C.C. Blankenship's and Sons was awarded the T-Beam Award. Max Phillips was awarded the Associate of the Year for the state of Tennessee. Blake Allison, a local builder, was awarded Builder of the Year for the state of Tennessee. And I'd also like to say congratulations to 2 former county commissioners and local builders on their achievements as well. Dennis Epperson was inducted to the Tennessee Home Builders Hall of Fame, and Charlotte Peak was installed as the 63rd president of the Home Builders Association of Tennessee last week. It was a clean sweep for Bradley County, and that was a very big deal. One of the first times that it's ever happened that all these awards were given to one county. And it was an honor to be there and see the local support for the building industry in Bradley County. And this was also the first time that the Home Builders Association of Tennessee annual dinner was hosted outside one of the major metropolitan areas, and they chose to come and be in our county and have it at the Pie Center. I want to say thank you to Dr. Cash and her staff for allowing the Home Builders Association of Tennessee to be there. It was a great time and a very big deal, and I just want to say thanks to everyone who came out and shared in our industry's achievement last week. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. There are no agenda items, so we'll go directly to communication from the audience. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Yes, sir. Your name and address, if you don't care.
582 South McDonald Road.
If you don't want to give your phone number publicly, you can give it.
I can give it.
You've got it? Okay. We're limited to 5 minutes, and you know the rules. You've been here many times.
Very much. After 2 years of working, we have finally reached, I hope, a resolution. What we've been trying to work with, and many commissioners have promised to break forth, but they never quite made it. But we have one that finally stepped up, and I want to say thank you to my commissioner, 6th District Commissioner, for bringing forth the change to communications from the audience, bringing it from the end to the beginning. Several weeks ago, you changed one of the items where you put prayer first. What a great idea. It shows our priorities. And now it's coming to the point where we don't have a new priority. It's going to become, we salute God, we have country, and then it comes, what's going to be number 3? Is it going to be government, or is it going to be citizens? I think now it's time that the citizens are able to speak first and have their talk. over the years, a few weeks ago, and I think the Banner had an article in which the chairman described how people, if they want to come and speak first, that they contact a commissioner. And on paper, that sounds reasonable. But however, we all have mistakes. Sometimes we miss a call, we miss an email, we miss a text. I've done that myself. And sometimes the opportunity for people to speak just is not given. In fact, a lady, I believe it was on September 19th, when you were talking about reforms to the transparency resolution. She stood here and said that she tried to contact her commissioner and was unable to get in touch with him. While she was speaking, the commissioner admitted that he just received the email. So I'm not saying that he did that on purpose. I don't believe that's the case. I believe he just missed it, and that's what happens. Now, if it wasn't for one of the other commissioners recognizing her, she would have been stuck in the back, waiting to the end, and speaking after a vote simply has no value. It simply has value. One of the most egregious actions that's ever been taken was on April the 25th, when the wonderful people from the Miracle League was here. On the agenda, and I have that agenda, they were put next to last. Now, out of all the citizens that we should have last, they should have never been last. They waited almost 45 minutes to be heard. That should never happen again. And if we would have listened to Mr. Roark and at least considered it, that might have never happened. Might have never happened. And the fact of the matter is, it should have never happened. They should have been given priority. And if we had citizens first, they would have never had to wait. That lady, Miss Kinsey, she's a wonderful person. What a great asset to our community that's going to be. Stood up here and told about the challenges facing her families. And it fell apparently on deaf ears, because then she explained why she can't travel, her family can't travel for 30 minutes to Chattanooga to these other parks. And then she made the comment, she was just amazed they were able to sit through all that talk about sewer. Quite frankly, they shouldn't have had to. And if we had only put them first, that would have never have happened. Now, the idea of being able to contact our commissioner is fine. That's fine. And it's a great idea. But what if the agenda, and I'm not saying that it's happening, but what if the agenda is that they don't want them to speak? Maybe it's not an approved subject. Then that commissioner basically is censoring what's being able to speak here. Some of them have possibly said that the possibility of not allowing the people to speak is because of the time. The meetings would go too long. How ridiculous. How utterly ridiculous. I'll go to for those who were looking at to contact our commissioner, and I have this here. I have a copy of the website, and apparently it might have not been updated yet, because I still see the former chairman welcome still there. Chairman, you might want to update that. But in that, I can find two numbers that are identical. One for the secretary, or the executive secretary. The number is 423-728-7105. And then, was that my time up?
Please bring it to a close.
Okay. Then at the end, one of the commissioners have the exact same number. So once the agenda is put on Fridays, they might not be able to get in to the end. So if it's the process to contact the executive assistant, and then she give the number to the commissioner, I think that office closes at Fridays, if I'm not mistaken. So the opportunity to contact has been closed. So once again, I want to thank Commissioner for us stepping up and doing as you promised. And on November the 7th, we're going to decide what's going to be first. It's going to be government, or it's going to be citizens.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Can you come back up front just a minute there, sir? You know, we have a work session every other meeting. Every other meeting is a work session. And that's time that we can spend on any issue that you have. We've had communication from the audience ever since I've been here. It's been like number 7 here. It's right down on the list there. Now, what would be the reason to have it up any closer than number 7?
It's the perception of being considered last. It's priorities. I mean, if you sit and talk about through the election, I'm the voice of the people. I'm going to stand up for you. And then when you look at the agenda, you're last. That doesn't say much of where you feel that people belong. The thing about it is that most importantly is having the opportunity to speak before a vote. And as I said before, speaking after a vote simply has no value at all. That's what we're getting at.
We don't vote on a work session.
I understand that.
Well, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time to spend here during the work session. I'm not taking that from you or whatever, but we always have communication from the audience, and we're transparent when it comes to talking about transparent. That is transparent, as long as you have that. And as far as I know, we've always had it.
Well,
and I don't see no reason moving it up.
Nobody's talking about anybody saying that it's been canceled, although there's been evidence that has been looked into by previous commission. But we're not talking about, we're saying that you're saying we're eliminating. We're just setting priorities of putting the citizens first and their agenda, not government.
Our constituents are always first. We listen to them all week long, and most of us do if you take your phone calls.
Again, I've had many complaints where phone calls and emails are simply not returned. They're simply not returning. You can't just sit there and say, I've never missed a phone call or I've never missed an email. I have. Just recently I have. So it happens.
Well, that's reason
So
we have
to fix that though, if we put them first, you don't have that perception, oh, we're putting you last. That's what I'm getting. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. Setting priorities. We put God first. There was no objections to that. All right? We put country first. There's no objections to that. But now we're saying putting citizens, that's an objection. That's a controversy. It's absurd. Absolutely absurd. I'm not disrespecting you. I have the utmost respect for you. I always have. But to sit and say, well, just because we throw you in at the last.
Thank you very much.
We don't throw you last, just remember that. We always have you on the agenda when you want to come up.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the audience like to speak? Anyone else from the audience? Yes.
Forgot something. I would just like to say thank you to the Lee College students back there that came. We thank y'all for coming to our meetings.
I'm sorry. The class from Lee, could you stand up? You have a spokesperson. Could you introduce yourselves, please? What class is it, I guess? Thank you very much. You're certainly getting a treat tonight. Anyone else like to speak again? All right, announcements. The next meeting will be a voting session November the 7th, 2022 at 7 p.m. Upcoming events, Education Committee and Tour, October the 25th at 4:30 at the Pie Center. Spirits, Legend, and Lore, October the 25th, 6:30 downtown. Road Committee, October 27th, 10:30 a.m., Commission Room. Law Enforcement Committee, October 27th, 1 p.m. at the Sheriff's Office. Block Party, October the 31st, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. downtown. The Pie Center grand opening, November the 1st, 10 o'clock at the Pie Center. Finance Committee, November the 7th at 11:30 a.m. in the Commission Room. I believe